It's been a few weeks, ladies. It's been a few weeks.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, because last week we had the praise and prayer request. The week before that we had the program. Yeah, so we didn't have Sunday school, and seems like almost we had something the week before that too. So I was like, I don't even know where we are. I got to study back and figure out where we are. We
We left
are.
him in a good place, did we not?
We did. We left them in a good place. We're going to blow that right now. But we left them in a good place. Numbers 21 is where we're going to pick up. We actually covered these verses, but I want to cover them again because, like I said, it's been a while. And I want to kind of give you a reminder of where we are. Last time we talked about Aaron died. He was 100, I looked it up. It was 120-something, 130-something years old when he died. I saw it yesterday, Friday, and I don't remember now. I should have written it down, but he was old. He was old, yeah. He was well in age. Okay. But he died on the mountain, and his son was named the new high priest. And they came down, and the people mourned, and then they started traveling again. And if you remember, I almost said Abraham. Wow. It has been a while. Moses contacted the king of Edom and asked could they cut across their land, because it would save them a whole lot of time if they could cut through instead of having to go all the way down and around. And he said nope. And they said, we won't touch anything, we won't eat anything, and he still said nope. So that is kind of where we're leaving off. They honored Edom's request, and they started going, heading all the way around. Okay, but in chapter 21 of Numbers, it says, and when King Arad the Canaanite, which dwelt in the south, heard tell that Israel came by the way of the spies, then he fought against Israel and took some of them prisoners. Now, if you remember, they're where they were the first time that God said go in and take the land, and they said, no, we can't do it. Okay, that's where they started this trip, and then they went down to Edom. Now, these people from Canaan, the land they're supposed to take, came out, and they just started fighting against them. They weren't even doing anything, but they knew they were heading their way, and so they thought, we'll head them out of the pass. And they started, and they took some of them prisoners, and it was ugly. Okay, and this is where we left off, because we saw a different kind of Israel, because this is not the same people that 40 years ago said we can't do it. This is their children, because they've been wandering around for 40 years, and their parents, their parents have died off, and this is those who were 20 years old and younger. Okay, and those who were even born during that 40 years. Okay, and where their parents, they didn't even go into the land, they just heard tell of what was in the land and said, no, we're too afraid. Here we have the land coming out to them, attacking them, and this is what they said in verse 2. And Israel vowed a vow unto the Lord and said, if thou wilt indeed deliver this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. Go, Israel! Backbone, stand up for yourselves. God promised you the land, take it. And they said, Lord,
enough to do it.
Yeah, they said, Lord, we're vowing a vow unto you. If you'll deliver them, we'll defeat them. God said, that's what I tried to do 40 years ago. And you wouldn't do it, but now they did. And the Lord hearkened to their voice in verse 3 and delivered up the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities, and he called the name of the place Hormah. And we said Hormah is the place where 40 years ago, those who, after they said they wouldn't go in, and Moses said, well, the Lord says then you're going to wander around 40 years, and some of them said, oh, well, since we're here, we might as well go in. Remember them? And they went in, and it says that they were driven out unto the place of Hormah. So that was where they got defeated last time, and that's where they got victory this time. What made the difference? They took God at his word. They took God at his word. So we covered that, but now I want to go to this next verse. I was going to cover this whole, not the whole chapter, but I was going to cover most of this chapter. I got caught on one phrase, y'all. One phrase. God would not let me pass that one phrase. And I was like, you know what?
Must be a good one.
It's a good one. And being the new year, I know I needed it. So, verse 4. And they journeyed, they being the children of Israel, from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea. Red Sea. Isn't that back where they started? Mm-hmm. They've seen, I wonder how many times at this point they've seen the Red Sea and gone, really? Really? Again? To come past the land of Edom, they got to go around. And here's the phrase I want you to focus on. And the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way. Much discouraged. Anybody ever been there? Weary, frustrated, tired, discouraged in the journey. For them, I imagine their discouragement was a lot of things. One, it is a whole lot longer journey than they planned on. Two, they're walking in circles, getting nowhere. They're getting nowhere fast. Three, they've lost loved ones day after day after day after day after day. I mean, can you imagine having a funeral or several funerals every single day? How depressing that would be. And now they finally reached, or they thought they reached the promised land. And it's like, okay, we just have to zip through here. And then they're told, no, you got to go all the way around. And the people were much discouraged in the way. I know everybody in here has been discouraged or is discouraged, okay, in the way, in the journey. And for some of the same reasons, maybe for other reasons. You know, for some of us, it's like, okay, this journey is a whole lot longer. And I'm not talking about the journey of life. I'm just talking about a journey for a particular thing. You know, it's like, this is a whole lot longer and harder than I thought it was going to be. Been there. I've been there. Done that. Took unexpected turns and went places I didn't think it was going to go. Took me places I didn't think it was going to take me. And I didn't know what to do when I got there. Been there. Done that. Okay. Lost loved ones along the way. Or not necessarily lost loved ones. I mean, have done that too, but not even some that die, but some that just say, I've had it, and walk away. You know? Paul, he said, you know, Demas has forsaken me. Who would walk away from Paul? You know? But Judas walked away from Christ. You know? We're in good company. For whatever reason, all of us, I'm sure, have been at some time or are currently discouraged in the way. It's hard. It's tough. It's not fair. We've prayed, and it seems like God's not answering, or that sometimes God is not even hearing. And we're going, really? Really? And we get discouraged. We get tired. We get frustrated. We get weary. And that was the phrase that just as soon as I was like, oh, much discouraged because of the way. Oh, man. But here's the good news. It is not a sin to be discouraged. It's not uncommon to be discouraged. It's not unusual to be discouraged. It's not a sin to be weary because Jesus was weary. And I want to compare a couple of things. Because here's the point. It's not a sin to be discouraged and weary. The sin comes in how we handle it. What do we do when we're discouraged and weary? And I want to show you what they do compared to what Jesus did when he was discouraged and weary. And it's like, I know sometimes people are like, okay, but Jesus was Jesus. I mean, he was God. Of course Jesus was still in a body. And his body was just like our bodies. It got hungry and it hurt. Oh, it hurt. It didn't like cold weather. His body was still a body. It was a human body. He was 100% man and 100% God, and I know that baffles mine, but it was. Okay, so the Bible makes it clear he was tempted in all points like we are. There is nothing we faced, including discouragement and weariness, that he doesn't face. So I want to look at a very familiar passage in John 4. John chapter 4. This is where Jesus meets the woman of Samaria. Okay? And I'm going to read a few of these verses. We'll do it from here. I want to read verses 1 through 6 and then kind of show you what was going on with Jesus. Okay? So John chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. When therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, in other words, they were jealous of Jesus, though Jesus himself baptized not, but his disciples, he left Judea and departed again into Galilee. And he must needs go through Samaria. I love that line. I love that. He must needs. He needed to go. Not he wanted to go, not he thought it would be a good idea, because it was out of the way. Kind of like the children of Israel. It was out of the way, but he needed to go. Verse 5 says, Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. There you go. Not a sin to be weary, not a sin to be discouraged. Jesus is on a mission to help people, to encourage people, to let people know about what he has come to do, that he's the Messiah, that he can lead them to heaven. And some people welcomed him with open arms, and other people, well, we just saw, he had to leave because they kicked him out of the city. Can you imagine kicking Jesus out? That might come back to bite you. They kicked him out. And that didn't happen just one time. That happened multiple times. They tried to stone him on occasions. They tried to trick him and tried to lie about him, and all because they were jealous. But can you imagine going to help, leaving heaven and everything that heaven has to offer, putting yourself in a frail human body just so you can help these people, and they're spitting in your face? They're kicking you out. I'd be like, you want me to leave? Okay, fine. I will go back to heaven. This is much better in heaven, where I'm worshiped and I'm reverenced, and all of my needs are met. The Bible tells us he didn't even have a place to stay. As far as that was his, he didn't have a home. He didn't have a bed because he was caring about others. Jesus was weary. Notice it doesn't say in his journey, it says with his journey. I'm weary with all of this. I'm weary with being kicked out of places. I'm weary of people not listening to me. I am weary of trying my best to help people and them spitting in my face. I'm weary with it all. Jesus was human. He was God, but he was human. Fortunately, even though his body was reacting in a physical sense and it was weary, spiritually, he was still doing the right thing. Because the reason he needed to go through Samaria, because he was going to help one more person. He wanted to help one more person. Even though he was tired, even though he was weary, even though sometimes you get to the point where you're so tired of trying to help people and them spitting in your face, you're like, fine, I'm not going to help anybody else. I'll just keep myself to myself. But Jesus said, no. There's somebody here that needs my help. So I'm going to go and I'm going to sit by this well and I'm going to wait for her. I'm tired, I'm weary, I'm frustrated, I'm discouraged, I'm disappointed. But she's going to come because she's weary and she's tired and she's frustrated and she needs me. And she did come. She came to get her water in the middle of the day because she didn't want to come when the other ladies came because they all made fun of her. Guess what? They spit in her face. They kicked her out. She knew exactly how Jesus felt, and Jesus knew exactly how she felt. And Jesus said, I can focus on me and my problems and my pity and my weariness and my discouragement, or I can focus on her and her discouragement and her weariness. So when she came, he asked her for water, and she said, hello, I'm a Samaritan, you're a Jew, we don't talk to each other because, we don't agree on things, and Samaritans were kind of like the half-breeds, and so they were looked down on, and they didn't agree with the same worship things. They said you didn't have to worship in the synagogue and whatever, you could worship wherever you wanted, and the Jews said, oh, that's sacrilege, and they just did not get along at all. Did not get along at all.
Like
and
today.
yeah, it sounds like today, exactly. And so she was just shocked that he spoke to her. She's like, you're talking to me? You're talking to me? And I imagine she thought, okay, he's just going to ridicule and he's going to sling mud at me like everybody else does. Isn't that sad that we get used to people slinging mud at us, that we almost expect it to happen? I bet she did. I bet she did. And Jesus said, if you knew who I was, you'd ask me for water. Love that. And she looks around and she says, you don't even have a bucket. You don't even have a bucket. How are you going to get water? Again, I hear this ridicule in her. You know, she's like, I'm guarding myself against this guy because he's just ready to sling mud at me. She says, you don't have water. And he says, oh, I have water you don't know anything about. He said, and this water, once you drink of it, you will never thirst again. She goes, gimme. I want this water. I want this water. And he says, go get your husband. I don't have a husband. And he says, you're right, you don't. You have 5. And the one you're living with now, he's not your husband. Now he's got her attention. Huh? How do you know that? How do you know that? And so he starts talking to her, and he says something to her about the Messiah. She said, oh, yeah, we know all about the Messiah. She says, in fact, we're waiting for him, praying for him, waiting for him every day. And he goes, that's me. That's me. I am the Messiah. That was all he had to say. She dropped her bucket and ran off. She ran to the city. There was such authority when he said, I am he, that she ran off. Not because she was afraid of him. She went to tell the whole city.
But you know, he probably didn't look like that.
No, he looked like a man.
And it was she, knows how they think about her, and she's still, even though what they think about her and how much they make fun of her, she's still willing to go and tell.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. She risked the ridicule of the entire city to go tell them about this man who claimed to be the Messiah. That's how much she believed.
Sitting on the side of the well.
Sitting on the side of the well with no bucket, This Jew,
to the ridicule anyway. So
she was used, yeah.
What did she have
to lose? Exactly. It's like, they make fun of me anyway. If they don't believe me, at least I know I tried. So she went and she told. What gets me is the disciples had been in the city and they were getting food. And guess how many people they told about the Messiah?
Oh, wow.
None. 12 of them went to the city and came back with food, but no people. Good preacher voice. Very good. You know what they were thinking about? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. They were thinking about, I'm weary in the journey. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I got to take care of me. And no doubt they were getting stuff for Jesus because he was waiting. Okay, I'll give them that. They were getting food and water for Jesus too, which water probably not because they were sitting at a well, but at least food. But still, you didn't tell anybody? Nobody? None of you? And did it take all 12 of you to get food? One woman went. She brought the whole city back with her. And she said, come see this man, come see this man. He told me everything I've ever done. And I don't think he told her everything she'd ever done, but a little exaggeration. But she said, he told me everything. Is this not the Christ? It's got to be. It's got to be. So they come and they're skeptical, whatever. But hey, let's go see what she's got to say. They go out there and they hear him and they say, not because you said so, lady. Not because, but because of what he says, we believe. And then they begged him to stay. Will you stay for a couple more days and teach us? And you know what Jesus said? Absolutely. I just got kicked out of the last city and now you want me to stay? Absolutely. He said, but wait, Jesus is weary. Jesus is tired. Jesus is discouraged. Well, he's probably not as discouraged anymore. Tired? Sure. But not too tired to help souls, to save souls, to think about others. That's Jesus' way. That's Jesus' way. And the whole city came to know Jesus because of that one woman. And she was like Jesus, and she thought beyond herself and beyond her own pity and her own sorrows and her own weariness and her own woes. And she went out and told everybody. Now, I want to take you back to the children of Israel. I want you to see how they dealt with their discouragement in the journey. Back to Numbers 21, verse 5. And the people spake against God and against Moses, Wherefore have ye brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. Again. Okay, let's break this down. Their reaction. The people spake against God and against Moses. Okay, they complained. Again. Again. We're tired, we're weary, and you know what? Our natural inclination, ours too, when we're tired and we're weary, what do we want to do? We complain. We complain. Number two, they spake against God and against Moses. They played the blame game. It's your fault. Why did you bring us? Why did you make us do this? Why aren't you taking care of us? Again, ladies, hate to stomp on your toes, but we're guilty. We're guilty of the same thing. We think we have things happen, we get discouraged, and we blame our spouses, we blame our children, we blame our parents, and we blame God when we get weary in the way. We get discouraged. Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? Okay, wait a minute. This is a new crowd, right? This is not the same crowd from 40 years ago. So where did they catch that phrase? That's like word perfect, what we've heard over and over and over and over and over again.
They probably heard it over and over and over from the stories.
Uh-huh. And not just from the stories, from the very mouths of their parents.
Oh, yeah.
That's what Mommy and Daddy always said. Why have you brought us into this wilderness to die? Why have you brought it? We need to be careful what we let out of our mouths, because it's contagious. To our children, to our spouses, to our families, to our churches, to our co-workers. They heard it from somewhere. They didn't come up with that on their own. That's exactly the same phrase that their parents used. They heard that over and over again, and they had it so rehearsed in their minds that it just came right out, rolling right out. Complain, blame, mimic their parents. Now get this one. I love this one. There is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. There is no bread, we loathe this light bread. Does anybody else see a contradiction in that statement?
It's just not the bread they wanted.
There you go. There you go. It's not that there is no bread. It is there is not the bread that we want. Not we don't have any food. It's we don't have the food that we want to have. Again, guilty. Guilty.
I was like, maybe when Mark picks a restaurant.
I don't want that.
I don't like this food.
Yeah. It's called exaggeration. There is nothing to eat. I've done that. I've gone to the pantry or the refrigerator and looked. There is nothing to eat in here. It is full. Both of them are full, and there's nothing to eat. That's not what I mean. Well, what I think I mean. There's nothing that I want. Now, I will be the first to admit that I would grow weary of eating the same food every day for 40 years. Okay, I will admit that. However, Jason made a good point when I was telling him about that. He said, you can look at it that way, or you could look at it that for every day for 40 years, you didn't have to meal plan, you didn't have to grocery shop, you didn't have to prepare, you didn't have to farm. All you had to do, all you had to do was go pick it up off the ground. That is all you had to do. You know what? He's right. It's called perspective. We can look and say, well, I have to eat the same thing every day, or we can look and go, I don't have to meal plan, woohoo! I don't have to cook, woohoo! I don't have to clean up the kitchen, woohoo!
Yeah.
Look at the bright side, you know? I don't have to pay for groceries, woohoo! You know? Look at the bright side. But they're complaining, blaming, mimicking the bad behavior of their parents. Then they are exaggerating. And then lastly, and I know it's time to go, I want to look at that last. Our soul loatheth this light bread. They're ungrateful. They're ungrateful. God has fed them with manna for 40 years, and they don't care. I wonder how many times in that 40 years they got up and said, "Thank you, Lord, for feeding us every day." And the thing with this manna is it provided every nutrient they needed. It was all the protein, the carbs, the fats, everything they needed, all the nutrients in that one thing. Shoot, if we had that today, they'd be selling it at Vitamin Shop and GNC and whatever. They'd be making money off of that stuff. Everybody would want it. It's like, all I have to do is eat this and I have enough energy to go hiking through the wilderness for 40 years, you know? I want some. I want some manna. I need that kind of energy. But they loathed it. We despise it. We hate it. Again, thank goodness I'm not God, because I'd say, you don't like it? Fine, don't eat it. Starve. See if I care. God's not that way. But I want you to see the difference. Jesus, weary in his journey, he reached out to others. Children of Israel, weary in their journey, they just got all to themselves and they lashed out at others. They didn't reach out to others, they lashed out at others. Which one are we going to do? When we get weary in our journey, what are we going to do? We're going to reach out and encourage others, or are we going to lash out and complain and blame and all those things? We have a choice. Being the new year, they said, it's kind of the beginning of the year. I thought that was a good way to start. I need to start that way. I need to start by remembering, we got a new year, got a new journey. It's a long journey, but I can choose my attitude. I can't choose what happens on the journey, but I can choose my attitude. And so can you. So I will leave you with that, and we will pray, and we'll be dismissed. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you so much for this day. Lord, I ask you to be with each one of us, Lord, and pray that you would help anyone, Lord, who is on a difficult journey right now, Lord, who's facing a hard time. I pray, God, that you would give them strength to continue, Lord, and I pray that you would give them your Spirit, Lord, to remind them that they can look to themselves and lash out at others, or, Lord, they can look to others and encourage, because that's the example you gave us to live by. And I pray, Lord, that you would help each one of us in this new year, Lord, to keep that in mind as we go along our journey, Lord, and that you would just remind us, Lord, to live like you. Please bless our services. In Jesus' name, amen.